Hey guys. Welcome to the live stream right here on TrinFx. Thank you for joining in. Anybody that joins in right now. So I started the stream kind of early because I just want to go over a few couple things that we see going on in the market right now. All right. Um, so yeah, I just want to discuss a few things going on right now. Let me just send this out to anyone that wants to see. Okay, so there's a few couple of things going on in the market right now. Good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. So we started stream kind of early. We'll do two parts this until around 7 o'clock, and then the other one from 9 to 11, right? But there's been a couple of things that happened last night that I want to just discuss and look over possible trade setups. And as you can see here, what I'm looking at currently is AD USD. And if we look across all the USD pairs, we could see that we did have a lot of movement, right? So we did have a lot of movement from these USD pairs. As you can see, Euro USD as well. We did see price swing to the upside. GU as well, and this is really something to pay attention to, right? And this is just dollar slippage. The dollar has fallen quite a bit because of those bond yields taking a slip, and therefore we saw this swing to the upside in favor of the other cross pairs, the other currency pairs against the US dollar, right? And it's a little significant to note because in terms of like a GBP USD, the GBP is the weaker currency, right? But we have seen the dollar slipping quite extraordinarily over the past couple of days, right? And so we can see on the DXY, if we're just taking a look at the index here, that price overall has been gradually falling down, and we've been falling down like pretty clearly, right? It's been pretty rough for the US dollar. You can see that we do have these long movements, these long bearish candle movements to the downside. If we take a look on the daily, yeah, we can see that we are bottoming out at a sort of a support here, right? So we could potentially see a swing back to the upside. Overall, the DXY is bullish. However, on recent days, we have been seeing that pullback to the downside, right? And this bearishness is what's causing the US dollar to basically weaken and seeing the other currencies against the US dollar pretty much strengthen on the days, right? Especially for the beginning of this week, we have been seeing price gradually continue moving upwards. All right, but this in itself is pretty good if you ask me, right? So I think we could potentially get a lot of setups out of this, especially if we take those swings back to the downside in favor of the US dollar once we see the DXY recover, right? So as I noted before, we are in a sort of a support zone right here on the daily time frame for the DXY. So price could basically maintain this level and start pulling back to the upside, right? So this is a pullback right here, and we could start rejecting from this level and continue back upwards, which is something that we could look for potentially overall, because I am still bullish on the US dollar despite what we are seeing now recently with the strong pullback. The US dollar is still sort of bullish, right? The Fed is still bullish in terms of their raising interest rates and what they have to do to help curb inflation and pretty much recover overall with the economy. So there isn't really a need to start selling the US dollar frantically or anything like that after we've seen these drops, because again, we're noting overall on the daily time frame and with the overall trend, we are continuing this upward movement, right? And we've been doing so heavily, right? The US dollar, the DXY has been trending upwards uh, overall for the past couple of months, right? So with that being said, I do think that overall we could see those continuation happening, right? So I'm not going to look to sell the US dollar or anything like that. I'll just look for opportunities to continue to go long with the dollar, right? So LCD especially with these risk currency assets like the NCT and the AUD, I think these are good potential setups, right? If we're just taking a look here on this NCD USD chart, this was a trade that we did take within the VIP of the TrinFx Discord community, right? We did take a NCD USD sell. Overall, was looking for that swing back to the downside for the dollar, but however, we did get that slippage and price pull back up, right? So I think this would be a good opportunity, especially leading into those CAD interest rates, to see the dollar actually recover and push back down, right? So this, if price actually is able to come below this sort of well now support area, this resistance still support, right? If price is able to push past this and come back down to these levels of the area that we entered, then we should see a continuation moving forward, right? Reason being is that this will now tell us, if price does come back down into this level, right? This will now tell us that, okay, the momentum that we once saw was temporary, and we're not going to see that continuation with the US dollar weakness, right? So if price does come back down, it tells us the momentum as we could, right? So that's basically what price will tell us. Let me just change the color of this to make it more visible, right? So if price does pull back down into this level, it shows us that previous momentum that we had, right, when those bond yields sell happen, is now dying down, right? That means the market, the US dollar, is recovering at that point. And if we pull past this level, again, this is a level of significance because on the daily time frame, all we can see happening, right? Overall on the daily time frame too, we're seeing that this is an area of rejection, right? We have these daily candles here where price came into and strongly rejected. So it's good to note this as well, right? The overall market trend and the overall market dynamics of price action, right? So looking back on the 1 hour, we can see that if price actually pulls back from this, all right, we're continuing with the overall daily trend, the overall what we saw on the daily chart, which is those wick rejections, and we should see that continuation back down, right? And we're waiting for extra confirmation by seeing price come back down past this level, close bearishly, to give us that continuation. That means that the bearish momentum is now stepping in, it's heavier, there's more sellers than buyers. So this move up here was just to, to grab liquidity or whatever the case may be, to get in a better pricing at a better discounted rate for those continuations back down, right? So this here has a lot of potential to play out, and I'll leave my entry point the same as before. I mean, we could enter early here and take the risk for that continuation moving down, because more likely there's a higher probability to see that happening for the NZD. But at the same time, if you want to be more conservative, you don't want to be risking too much, especially in this market environment where we do have a lot of wick rejections. We have a lot of volatility, especially with the news that we have coming up as well, and low volume situations, right? So you'll see a lot of wicking back and forth ranging situations. So you want to be more clear and more concise when it comes to entering your trades, and you want to have that patience as well to take the best possible entries, so you avoid yourself from being stopped out or pain situations where the trade may go against you just because of those low volume situations that we have going on, right? So that's why overall I would wait until price does come back into my entry level right around here, the initial starting of that movement, right, to see that continuation back down. So that's something I think we could look forward to moving for the rest of the week. If we look here on the if we look here on what we have coming up, sorry, for we have the interest rates for the CAD as well as other news events for this week. So we're just taking a look at this week, what we have coming up. We have the CAD interest rates coming at 10 o'clock, and as you can see, we are expecting an increase to 4% from 3.25%, so around a 75 base point increase. With that being said, though, however, we could see a potential, even a higher move with the interest rates, right? We could see this actually coming out a lot larger than this 4% consensus that we do have. Overall, with all the interest rates that we do have coming up, there's a total of, in terms of the consensus that we do have for them, it totals around to a 400 base point increase. So that's a lot. That's a lot in terms of interest rates, right? And gradually over the year itself, we have seen that the interest rates has continuously been rising, right? That just goes to show the situation, how severe it is when it comes to inflation, and how keen all the central banks, all the all the Federal Reserve, central bank, how keen they are at curbing inflation and how serious they are about it, right? So we could expect a large move for the CAD being the first one to come out with their interest rate decision with that increase, as well as secondly we have on the Thursday we have the ECB interest rate decision as well. As you can see, we are expecting a 75 base point increase as well, from the 1.25% to an overall 2% increase. And we also have, I believe, continuing next week, we also do have more interest rates to be looking out for, right? We have the USD interest rate, as well as hold on, I believe we do have one for the ending of the week as well. Let's just take a look here. Yeah, we have the 80 interest rates as well, coming to the ending of the month. We also have that increase, right? As you can see, the increase itself that we are expecting in terms of the consensus isn't as largely as the rest. So in terms of this, we may see an actual negative movement for the AD, just because overall they are lagging behind all the other interest rate decisions that we are seeing by how much they're increasing their rates compared to what the AD, what we could expect from the Aussie, right? So that may negatively impact the Aussie dollar, just because interest rates overall from the other economies have been rising gradually, right, at a more quicker pace than the AD dollar, as you can see here, right? We just expected a 0.25 percent increase, right? So this it's kind of tricky to say what we could expect from that, but overall in terms of market psychology and how the hedge fund owners, the big banks, and all the other the movers of the market, how they think we could potentially expect actual negative movement for the AUD, right? So that's just something I want to note for you guys as well. And hey, I can see that we actually have we have some viewers here. So hey guys, thank you for joining in. If you're following along so far, then feel free to type in the chat. Because I am watching the chat right now. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask. If you want to look at any particular pair as well, then feel free to ask. We could do so. But in terms of what we have going on, I think these are really nice setups for some continuations, right? Or for some initial movement from what we expect price to do, especially on these USD pairs, right? So that's something that I think has a lot of potentiality to actually play out. Another thing I want to watch and note as well is these AED pair movements, right? So this was one trade that we did take within the VIP as well. Euro AED sell, and this was from when we had those AED news event. All right, so let's just take a look at this week. From last night, right? We did have a lot of AED movements. We have CPI for the third quarter. As you can see, the consensus was 127.5, and we actually got a better than expected result from that. And the reason why CPI is when it comes out higher than expected, and why that's good for the currency, is CPI is used as a tool to really understand inflation, right? So a lot of central banks would use a CPI, right, which is, if we just take a look here, right, so they say that how it's a higher than expected number is considered positive for the AD, while a lower than expected figure should be seen as negative, right? And then the CPI basically stands for Consumer Price Index, and it basically shows the spending in terms of the overall. It's divided into sectors, and when it comes to spending, right? So you have on food, goods, services, and education, as well as some other things, right? Which makes up the total of CPI, the CPI data. And with the other stuff that we do see here, we have the inflation rate as well, coming out better than expected, both for the yearly comparison and the third quarter at 7.3% and 1.8%, right? And then we have the trim medium and all of that, which is just the overall the average and whatnot of that CPI data, right? So what this basically means, right, is that it gives a good look of inflation and where the economy is at, right? So that's why CPI data is actually very fundamental, is very important when it comes to the central banks having to look at data to decide what they're going to do in terms of raising rates, cash rates, their monetary policies and whatnot, right? So they use these different data points such as CPI, GDP growth, the last interest rate performance after the increase as well, to decide what they're going to do moving further on, right? So we had CPI coming out better than expected, and all these other high impactful AUD news events did come out better than expected, right? And mainly what we're looking at is inflation and that CPI data, right? So that came out higher than expected. We got the initial spike to the downside right here on this Euro AUD movement, right? Price reached into that level, and we were able to take our profits right around 2%. Risking 2% overall, we were able to take that to make a 4% return, and then price pulled back from that area. But as you can see, we had that continuation moving down. I did not hold this move overall. I was expecting price to actually just push all the way down or see this wick fill out, right, and then the continuation moving further. But we had that pullback first, where's why we got out, and then price gradually continued. And overall, you can see the other AED pairs as well did continue that movement higher, right? Seeing more of an AED strength because of that initial news event that we did have, right? Moving forward, however, I do think these setups are quite good for sell opportunities as well. Looking at the daily here in terms of AED CAD, especially AED CAD, that we have the interest rates coming out. This is a good potential setup, right? Because we're running into technical levels as well as overall having a fundamental bias as to why we should see price swing to the downside. So that's something that this has a lot of potential to actually play out too, because we're both lining up with the technicals and fundamentals here. So as we approach to that interest rate increase for the CAD, I do think at this point, right, we could see a potential swing back to the lows, right? So right into this area as we look for that interest rate increase, and we could start to probably range as well. If we don't see price push past this area of support, then we could possibly start ranging here once price does reach back down to these levels. But right now, yeah, because technically we're running into this area of resistance after we had this break to the downside. We can see that clearly. Price rejected this area, we pulled back from it, then we had this clear break to the downside here on the 4-hour, right? We started zoning right in this area, we started ranging right here, then price pulled to the upside here. With that AD news, we saw price for the AD gain some strength, which gave us this nice clean pullback here, right? And overall, with the market sentiment, we are still in a risk off kind of market tone, right? We are still in a risk off environment. There's no reason fundamentally to stop buying the AD right now. And it's a sort of a tricky thing when it comes to understanding the risk off and risk on tones, especially with the market movements right now that we are seeing. But these are all contributed to the fundamental data that we gotten thus far, which is why we saw that strong pullback to the upside here. Now this is where we'll see psychologically, this is a level where we could possibly see investors hold, right? This is a level that we can see investors hold technically it does line up, as well as fundamentally this is a point where we can get at a discounted price for that continuation, those sells back to the downside in favor of the card, right? So that's why, even though we are pushing up, right, slightly here on the 1 hour, it's highly improbable. Well, it's less probable to see price just continue with that swing to the upside, especially when we do have that Canadian news coming out, with the interest rate that everybody is looking forward to. Then this here, it gives a higher probability of actually swinging lower, right? So this is a potential trade that I'll get into. Actually, I'm going to get into this right now, right? So this is a 1 to 4, just giving price some room to breathe in case if we do see some pullbacks again. But yeah, this is a trade I'm going to get into, entering right here at 0.87 696, right? With a stop of 37 pips, around 37 pips, right? So this is a trade that I'm getting into right now, guys. So this is a potential trade setup right here for you guys, that if you want to enter, I'm risking around 2% on this. I am going higher on the risk. So I'm just gonna input this right now for myself on my MetaTrader. Right. 80 card. Risking 2% for those swing lows. Right. And this is a trade that has a lot of potentiality to actually play out for me. So hopefully you guys got some value out of that. So moving forward, this is what I'm looking to see, right? That swing back to the downside, especially after we had this nice push right here into this resistance zone. We're going to start seeing sellers come in, this level maintaining, and the more selling strength that we do have, the cleaner we're going to see these candles reject and continue moving, right? So if we do get a nice bearish close from this area, that just shows that, okay, the sellers are now competing with those earlier buyers, right? Even right now, we should see those buyers come out, because this is where it comes to understanding the market in terms of both the technicals and the fundamental reasonings behind the movements, right? We know that this AD movement to the upside wasn't because of, the AD being more in a risk on environment, right? This is just because we did have those AD news before, which came out bullish. Yes, we could expect some movement from the AD, from the central bank as well, especially given those high numbers that we did get in terms of the CPI inflation rate. So we could expect in the future more interest rates increase. However, the main factor that everyone is looking at, the main thing everyone is looking at, is that Canadian interest rate decision, right? So we could just note here a couple of things why we took this trade, right? And you guys could take a screenshot of this as well and note it down, right? So this may help you in terms of your fundamental analysis, as well as you continue moving on with your trading career. So overall, why we enter this trade: one, the technical levels align. We had a pullback into the zone. Alright, so technical levels align. We had that pullback into the major zone. Two, right, on a daily level, so on the left hand side, we do have those, right? Just to give you guys a closer look. So we had that break to the downside, right? That clear movement, that clear break to the downside after price tried to maintain this area. We do have this area as well right here. So you can see that price did hold this general zone multiple times from here. then here, then we had that break to the downside, right? So on the daily level shows rejection wick formations, right? Thirdly, fundamentally, we have CAD interest rate. CAD rates 75 base point increase, right? Which is the main looker for now, right? This is the main thing that we are looking at right now, which is those CAD interest rates coming out at the 75 basis point increase. All right. So all of that aligns with this curve movement that we are seeing, and those continuations do look more highly probable than seeing price pull back all the way up. Right now, it's not impossible to see price move all the way, like just maintain this area and push up. Right, it's not impossible to see that. However, the probability is highly unlikely. Right, so that's why so that's why overall I do think that price has a more likelihood to continue those movements downwards, right? Especially overall with the daily trend, the overall daily trend. This is something that aligns too, right? So everything currently is telling us that we're going to see those sell continuations. So yeah, this trade just kind of golden, right? Another trade I did take is this. Sorry, another trade I did take on my account was a GBP card, right? Oh, and look, you can see here on NCD USD, right? Price is pulling back. So if we do clear this area right here, the support zone, those continuations to move further downwards it looks even better, right? GB card was another trade I did take again with card interest rates coming out and this push to the upside, right? This swing to the upside, yeah, that's basically because of those USD weakness, right? Because of those bond yields and that USD slippage, we did see these other currencies, right, basically recover from that movement, right? So that USD weakness did contribute to a lot of these upward movements we did see on price. The GBP, the Euro, the AUD, right? It's not because of their strength, but in terms of their relative strength to the US dollar. And this is something that you should note as well, is that what the US dollar does, what happens with the US dollar also affects other currencies, right? And it plays with the currency strength as well. So a weaker US dollar gives rise or gives strength to these other currencies, right? And it's all about relativity, especially when it comes to the economy. It's a sort of a balancing act, right? They say a idiom, something that a lot of people use, is when the U.S. sneezes, we catch a cold, right? Or when we catch a cold, when the U.S. catch a cold, sorry, we sneeze, right? And it's something that I've constantly heard, and it makes sense. Even in the market environment, it makes sense, right? When something happens with the U.S. dollar, it really ripples through all the other cross currencies. And it's important to note that okay, certain movements that we do get isn't because of the currency strength themselves, such as in this case the GBP, right? But because of that relativeness to the US dollar. So that's something that I think would help you in terms of your trading when you're able to catch on to why price moved as it does and understanding why this movement happened and what you could potentially see as well. Right, so this was a trade I took. Currently kind of playing out, so I'm looking for this to actually continue with this movement. If we close bearishly, I don't want to see price wick back up here or anything like that. If it does wick back to entry, then I'll look to come out. Right, overall we should see a continuation with the market movement, just because again this all of this has contributed to that USD weakness, and we are looking for those card interest rates to help us with this movement continuing further on. So this, yeah, I'm looking for this to continue. The AED card sells, looking for that to continue as well, right? And you can see we note why we're possibly going to see that continuation. So yeah, that's basically it for right now. So I'm just gonna monitor this. Just want to come on quick and just show you guys what's going on. start getting more into the live streams, more into helping you guys understand the market movement. If you do find this helpful, that's all I'm here. That's all what I'm about, right? Helping people understand fundamental movements, understanding market movement, price action analysis, and stuff like that. So if you do gain something from this live stream, hey, that's all I could ask for, right? I would come back on at 9 o'clock, 9 to 10, right? Because we do have interest rates happening at 10 o'clock for the CAD. So I am coming back on at 9 o'clock to see the continuations, what we see happening, and we'll look at these moves. We'll look at these setups that we did take here. We'll look to see if we're going to see a continuation of those movements and if we were right with the fundamental analysis as well as the technical movements here, right? So thank you for joining in, guys. Really, really, really appreciate it. And I do hope that you gain some information out of this and continuing forward. Yeah, this is going to be a regular. I'm even going to try to do Asian sessions as well in the night to really help you guys with the different session timings, and maybe it might help you for yourself gather some information on what works best for you, especially when it comes to those trading times, right? And when we do see the recovery in 2023 and we're moving onwards, then you'll possibly be able to incorporate that into your trading strategy to help you better yourself, right? And better get in a sort of a discipline and cycle when it comes to your trading, right? So thank you guys. See you at 9, right?